Hello, everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into something practically all of us have wrestled with at some point, the totally universal struggle of breakouts. But listen, instead of just tossing around the usual surface-level tips, we are going to get into the fascinating microscopic science of our skin. We'll look at how a blemish literally forms, what actually triggers it, and here's the kicker, how the very stuff we use to cover up our skin might be secretly sabotaging the whole thing. If you've ever felt completely frustrated by your skin, stick around. We're going to uncover some pure science-backed clarity together. Okay, let's dive right into this with a massive number, 633 million. Back in 2015, acne affected roughly 633 million people globally. That makes it the 8th most common disease in the entire world. Keeping that massive number in mind highlights something absolutely crucial. Dealing with acne is a profoundly shared human condition. It is not some personal failing, it definitely doesn't mean you're doing something wrong, and it is for sure not something you're dealing with alone.
Here is exactly where we're headed in this explainer. First, the global epidemic. Then, anatomy of a breakout. Third, what actually causes acne. Next, the hidden makeup trap. And finally, science-backed solutions. Let's start with section 1, the global epidemic, more than just a teenage phase.
We've all been kind of trained to picture awkward middle schoolers when we think of acne. And yeah, up to 90% of teens do experience breakouts. But the data shows us this is so much more than just puberty. Get this, 54% of women and 40% of men over the age of 25 still experience acne. Nearly half of the people affected by it carry those breakouts right into their 20s and 30s, and a smaller group deals with it well into their 40s. So if you're an adult battling breakouts right now, your experience is entirely valid. These numbers completely destigmatize adult breakouts. You are part of a very large, incredibly normal statistical group. Moving right along to section 2, anatomy of a breakout, under the microscope. Now, what's really interesting about this next part is what happens at the microscopic level. Acne is fundamentally a chronic disease of what's called the pilosebaceous unit, which I know sounds like a mouthful, but it's really just a fancy scientific term for your hair follicle and its oil gland. Let's walk through the exact biological sequence of a breakout. Imagine your pore is a tiny little pathway. Step 1, your skin's sebaceous gland produces excess sebum or oil. Step 2, normally, dead skin cells just shed and seamlessly exit that pathway. But because of all that excess oil, the protein keratin and those dead cells clump together, creating a literal plug, a completely blocked pathway. Step 3, this trapped oily environment is like an all-you-can-eat buffet for a naturally occurring skin bacterium called C. acnes. It rapidly reproduces in there. And finally, step 4, your immune system detects this massive bacterial overgrowth, sounds the alarm, and triggers inflammation, rushing immune cells to the scene. That inflammatory response, that is exactly what creates the red, swollen pimple we all recognize. Section 3, what actually causes acne? Myths versus biological realities. So why do some people get these constantly while others just don't? Well, first off, we need to completely dismantle a massive, persistent myth, and that's the idea that acne is caused by poor hygiene. That is totally false. The medical literature definitively shows that being unclean has absolutely no association with acne. In fact, dermatologists constantly warn that scrubbing and washing your face more than twice a day can strip your skin barrier and actually make the irritation so much worse. Oh, and that myth about sunlight curing acne? Also false. The real culprits here are genetics and hormones. Check this out. A staggering 81% of the variation in acne susceptibility is explained strictly by genetics. 81%. That means for the vast majority of people, the tendency to break out is quite literally written right into their DNA. It is highly heritable. You didn't do anything wrong to get acne. You most likely just inherited skin follicles that are genetically a bit more sensitive to certain triggers, or genes that naturally produce a higher baseline of inflammation. And what is the primary trigger for those genetically sensitive follicles? Hormones, specifically androgen hormones like testosterone and dihydrotestosterone. They drive the skin's glands to grow larger and pump out way more sebum. Now, while hormones act as the core engine driving the oil production, your lifestyle factors act kind of like secondary catalysts. For instance, high glycemic diets, meaning foods packed with simple sugars, can spike your insulin, which in turn promotes androgen production. And stress? While stress doesn't necessarily create acne out of thin air, but studies show it can absolutely fan the flames and exacerbate an existing outbreak. Let's move to and see how this builds in section 4, the hidden makeup trap, the paradox of covering up.
We just established that excess oil plugs the pore from the inside. But what happens when we accidentally plug it from the outside? I want you to genuinely consider your own daily routine for a second. Think about the foundation, the concealer, the blush, even the sunscreen you apply every single morning. We usually use these products to hide our blemishes, right? But that creates this crazy paradox where our attempt to cover up the problem might secretly be the very thing sabotaging our skin and triggering the next wave of breakouts. Dermatologists actually have a specific medical term for this phenomenon, acne cosmetica. It is a persistent type of acne caused entirely by pore clogging or comedogenic cosmetics. Unlike hormonal acne, which typically flares up deep under the jawline maybe once a month, acne cosmetica usually shows up as tiny, rough, flesh-colored bumps. They're called closed comedones, and they usually cluster uniformly on the forehead, the cheeks, or right along the hairline. It's a direct physical reaction to what we're applying topically.
Okay, so what should you actually be looking out for? Let's run through a rapid-fire list of highly comedogenic ingredients you should probably check your product labels for right now. We're talking heavy oils like coconut oil and cocoa butter. Silicones, especially dimethicone. They give makeup that amazing silky smooth feel, but they act basically like tightly sealed plastic wrap over your pore, trapping oil and debris right underneath. Then there are thickening waxes like beeswax, common esters like isopropyl myristate, and even natural plant derivatives like algae extracts, which surprisingly can severely congest acne-prone skin. If your daily foundation is packed with these, it's acting like a literal seal shutting your pores.
Which brings us to our final section, Section 5, Science-Backed Skin Solutions, Treating and Managing Breakouts. Now, don't panic. You absolutely do not have to give up makeup forever. Whether your breakouts are driven by genetics, hormones, or your cosmetics, there are highly effective, evidence-based strategies to get your skin back on track. A solid management plan really requires a dual approach, medical and cosmetic. On the medical side, treatments like benzoyl peroxide work by physically oxidizing and killing that C. acnes bacteria. Retinoids normalize the life cycle of your skin cells so they don't clump up in the first place. And medications like spironolactone can actually block androgen receptors to shut down excess oil production right at the hormonal source. Then, on the cosmetic side, the strategy is all about preventing new blockages from forming from the outside in. That means strictly using non-comedogenic makeup, mastering proper cleansing, and switching over to mineral sunscreens. If you're currently dealing with active, angry breakouts, you're going to want to look for these specific, dermatologist-approved soothing ingredients in your skincare routine. We're talking niacinamide, salicylic acid, which is a BHA that actively dissolves oil right inside the pore, zinc, centella asiatica, which is often called cica, and tea tree oil. These ingredients are absolute champions at taking down inflammation and promoting healing. Remember, the goal here is to soothe and support the skin barrier, not attack it with harsh, gritty scrubs that are only going to trigger way more inflammation. So, the crucial point is this. Your everyday, daily habits matter just as much as your intense spot treatments. Choosing water-based, oil-free makeup formulas is half the battle. The other half? Absolute dedication to double cleansing at night. Double cleansing usually starts with a micellar water or a gentle cleansing balm, followed immediately by a regular water-based cleanser, and it is an absolute necessity. Seriously, it's the only effective way to fully break down those stubborn films, waxes, and silicones left behind by your makeup and sunscreen, making sure your pores can actually breathe while you sleep. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final, slightly provocative thought. The next time you stand in front of the mirror to get ready for the day, ask yourself, are you genuinely treating your skin, or are you just covering it up? By understanding the microscopic biology of your pores, respecting your unique genetics, and taking a hard look at the ingredient lists inside your makeup bag, you absolutely have the power to break the breakout cycle. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, stay curious, and I'll catch you in the next one.